Hello everyone. February and March were busy, so we put them in one video. Here you go.
And the Oscar goes to Michelle Yeoh.
The Strays has got to be one of the worst movies I've seen in a very long time. So bad, in fact, that I couldn't finish it. The amount of films I've started and never finished is so small, I'm gonna show them to you right now. The camera work is fine at points, but then it becomes unbearable. The horror elements are fucking lame, unengaging, cliched, annoying, and played out. The performances are misguided, and this story, if you've heard from other people, is just a Jordan Peele plot. The concept of black people performing whiteness in white spaces is not an interesting concept on its own because it's a concept being covered a lot in pop culture in recent years. And when something is being done as often as this concept is being done, you have to do it in an interesting way, which this is not. If you want a good version of this kind of story, there's a really good book called The Vanishing Half, so read that instead. And I'm giving The Strays a 1 out of 10. Easily the worst film of the year.
A terrible experience from beginning to whenever I stopped watching it. A 1 out of 10. Ever since Uncut Gems came out, Adam Sandler has been in this weird routine of being in a good movie and then being in Dookie, but his next movie will be good. I can't wait. Otherwise, Murder Mystery 2, 3 out of 10.
Murder Mystery 2 is a movie that exists. There's barely a murder and barely a mystery. Actors you know show up and they collect a paycheck. Things happen, everything turns out okay, no risk, no stakes. 90 minutes that once existed is now gone forever, and I'm giving Murder Mystery 2 a 3 out of 10.
If the first 2/3 of this movie were as cool as the last third, this could have at least been a 5 out of 10. Dinosaurs are cool though. I can't say I'll never watch this again because when it's on FX in a couple years, I will watch it. 3 out of 10.
And the Oscar goes to...
This movie is made for babies, seriously. Babies that slobber on those teether plastic toys. Every cookie cutter cliche from the past 15 years of superhero slop is presented here in full form. We've got multiple MacGuffins, people in front of CGI backgrounds. We've got pause for applause cameos that are meant to make people over the age of 20 scream in a dark room. It's so annoying, and it's fucking stupid. This superhero shit is so egregious. I really am starting to hate it. Anyway, Jack Dylan Grazer, Rachel Zelger, and Helen Mirren give performances that are up to par with what they have to work with, I guess. The opening sequence was cool, and it made me think we were gonna get an actual movie, and the score was passable. Other than that, this movie is trash. Superhero movie fatigue is definitely a real thing. A solid 3 out of 10.
Cocaine Bear is the latest film directed by Elizabeth Banks. The tone is inconsistent throughout, the jokes weren't that funny, the human antagonist was a first draft idea, and a lot of the fun moments were in the trailer. But beyond the fact that the bear in Cocaine Bear does cocaine, this film doesn't evolve into anything interesting. There's one scene that really bugged me amongst all the other scenes that bugged me, and that's when Kerry Russell and some other people are introduced to the titular bear. We have already at this point seen the bear. We've seen it do cocaine, and we've seen it murder people. But now, in this particular scene, for some reason, Elizabeth Banks decided she wanted to take the Jaws and Alien route by not showing the bear when it's attacking people. But we've already seen the bear attacking people already. It doesn't make any sense to present the bear this way anymore. Like, you either start that way or you don't fucking do it ever at all. It felt like a fundamental misunderstanding of the techniques being used, and it was very silly. Cocaine Bear is moderately entertaining, and that's it. I loved looking at Kerry Russell for the limited time she has in this, because she's a great actor and the camera loves her face, and some of the gore looked okay, but that's really it. I'm never gonna watch Cocaine Bear again. It was a fun meme for a second, but the movie did not live up to the meme, and I'm giving Cocaine Bear a 4 out of 10.
This movie is genuinely terrible. Holy shit. The story is awful, the camera work is not good except for the truck sequence in the middle, and the acting is terrible as well. Remember in the movie Godzilla when the titular Godzilla was in the movie for 5% of its runtime? It felt like a super shitty Family Guy cutaway gag that just does not end, I swear to God. At the beginning, Peter should have come out and said, "This is like the time a bear did cocaine in the forest." If they did that, I would at least give this movie a 5. But that's about it. Story is awful, not enough Cocaine Bear, 2 out of 10. It was a bad time in theaters.
Your Place or Mine was made in the vein of the types of rom-coms that we used to get in the 90s all the way through the mid-2000s, but with a different twist where the two leads barely interact with each other until the end of the movie. I said that in a snarky way, but it actually is kind of interesting to learn about someone you thought you knew through their material belongings, but I think in many ways, this felt like a wasted opportunity. The ways they learn about each other in certain instances could have been more thought out. Ashton Kutcher and Reese Witherspoon don't have great chemistry together, but my biggest gripe with this film is that it's a glossy, sanitized, half-hearted attempt at trying to be genuine, but it just comes off fake as hell. Reese Witherspoon is talking about health insurance for her kid and basically working paycheck to paycheck and a bunch of stuff I'd love to see discussed more in mainstream movies, but I can't buy a second of it because Reese Witherspoon visually is clearly unfit for this role because A, she is Reese Witherspoon, and B, if you're living the sort of life where you have to worry about health insurance, how do you have the money to pay for Botox? It just doesn't make sense to me. And the aesthetics, again, are too sterile to get immersed in this world where half of this couple is poor. Also, Ashton Kutcher's character is so played out. The only thing I'll give it, again, is the premise of learning about someone through their material belongings being interesting enough. It was whatever. I watched it. I'm giving Your Place or Mine a 4 out of 10.
One of the most forgettable movies I've ever seen, besides the fact that I think Peter's apartment has to cost about $10,000 per month. Did y'all see that? Man was living lavishly, but can you imagine? Also, talk about having no on-screen chemistry. 3 out of 10. Holy shit.
To all of you out there, please keep your dreams alive.
The climb was really the best part of this, and that song isn't even on this album. This feels super uninspired technically, and the camera movements and color palette here literally do nothing when she performs, which is a shame because you can feel that she tries really hard with her songwriting this time around to make each song feel unique and personal, but it comes off super safe. I guess this would be good house music, to be honest. Wouldn't blast it with the windows down in my car during the summertime, which is weird because isn't this called Endless Summer Vacation? I don't know. Overall though, a 4 out of 10. This movie was mid, but had some good moments, some generic life lessons, and one very cool visual towards the very end of the movie. It starts off super slow, but kind of picks up and then gets super slow again. I will never watch this again. 4 out of 10.
Of an Age is a queer period piece set in Australia, in it, bruv, about two guys who meet under a particular set of circumstances. It started off strong, but as it went on, it really lost its power to me. Tom Green is really great here, and I hope he gets to be in more things because he's pretty wonderful on camera and made the most out of many pivotal scenes in the film. It's visually striking, shot a majority in close-up, which I know people would probably be irritated with, but given what the film is about, it made sense to present the film this way. But the big issue for me falls with the time jump that happens in the second half of the film, because what unfolds is inessential. Like, I understand the utility of doing that dramatically, but it doesn't amount to anything, and it ends very similarly to a queer drama that people already love. So it felt like it was just trying to do that instead of being its own thing. They probably just should have spent more time in that first half and fleshed that out more and just had that be the whole movie. But I guess there weren't enough ideas for some reason. And I'm giving Of an Age a 5 out of 10.
This movie is cringe, predictable, and sometimes it's super annoying, and I loved it. Why was this so cute? It really had me crying towards the end. 5 out of 10.
We want to dedicate this to the mommies, all the mommies of the world.
Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is awful. People will say that this movie is uniquely bad in relation to the other MCU movies. Just for a quick exercise, here are all the gripes that I have with this film. The CGI environments look like shit. It's not immersive, it's not interesting, it's not real, it's boring. The performances are mid. The story has no stakes at all. It's boring. This exists for the sake of being a footnote for an Avengers movie a couple of years from now. How is that any different from what we first said about Ragnarok the first time and the second time, Black Panther, Infinity War, all of the Marvel movies that we have reviewed since we made this channel? And this film is the same shit. It's just that people are getting tired of it now. The only interesting thing about this film is the fact that Hank Pym basically admits that he's a socialist, and it's annoying that his character is so based in this movie that is so shit. And I'm giving Ant-Man 3 a 3 out of 10.
Honestly, I've seen worse movies from the MCU. I thought maybe this would be god awful because of the reactions I've been seeing, but it was fine. It's the same Marvel slop we usually get, and I was kind of invested in the story no matter how ridiculous it got. I just missed Luis. We need more Luis. Ant-Man and the Wasp was one of, if not the worst MCU film ever, but this was a tad better. Anyway, when Kang said, "I am Kang," I felt that in my chest. I need more of him in future Marvel movies immediately. 5 out of 10 movie though.
Money Shot, the Pornhub story, or a Pornhub story, I don't remember what the title is a 90-minute Netflix documentary about many things. It's about sex work, specific sex workers, Pornhub, the website, people who work for Pornhub, the website, people who work for Pornhub's parent company website, the problem with CP on their platform, a lawsuit that ensues, backlash, etc., etc. This film is about so many things. One might say it's about too many things, especially for how short it is. It feels like all of those other Netflix documentaries that aren't made by actual filmmakers and feel like they were made by an algorithm that's designed to only be as deeply informative and progressive as a brand as big as Netflix will allow it to be. If you have a passing knowledge of sex work in any way, shape, or form, this will go in one ear and out the other, and I'm giving Money Shot a 5 out of 10.
Is this boring? Kind of, which is a shame. It kind of shows both sides to the story, but as soon as I finished this, I forgot both of them. Feels like someone could have done more to make this more impactful. Its structure was super weird. It talks about how great the porn industry is to start, then it goes into how bad it is for about an hour, and then it transitions to OnlyFans in the last 20 minutes. Then I feel like it takes a side right at the end. I don't know, brother. It doesn't really hit home like it wants to. A nice 3 out of 10.
Look, this movie is not good by any means, okay? But 80 for Brady was so cute. Rita Moreno and Sally Field carry this film on their backs. There's this really good scene when they're all sleeping in a hotel room that absolutely knocked me out. There's a couple of fun sequences scattered throughout, and a Quentin Tarantino level of historical revisionism, but the rest of it is as you would probably assume, pretty bad. The lighting and VFX are horrendous, and the fact that it's shot on digital highlights that issue even more. If this was shot on film, it would probably look passable, but whatever. I had a great time, and I'll never watch this again. And even though I didn't, I think you should watch this with your mom if you have one, or if you like your mom, and you'll probably like this movie too if you watch it under those circumstances. And I'm giving 80 for Brady a 5 out of 10.
Super harmless watch, had some moments that made me think to myself, boy, I like football, but I hope me and my bros are like this in the future, low-key. Honestly, I hope we can afford a freaking NFL ticket because that shit is expensive. 5 out of 10.
Knock at the Cabin is the latest film by M. Night Shyamalan, and it's one of his most underwhelming that he's ever made. I was properly whelmed. Most of the performances were solid, the standouts being Dave Bautista and Abby Quinn. There were nice shots and really smart blocking at times, but the major turning points in the story were so basic on paper and in execution that I didn't really feel anything. I wanted to be invested, and as they kept building up up to the next turning point, I was thinking at some point M. Night is going to pull the rug from under me and I'm going to feel something, or I'm going to be more invested, or I'm going to unintentionally laugh my ass off. But M. Night never really got me there, or anywhere for that matter. I can't wait to see whatever M. Night has next, and I hope it's more fun than this. And I'm giving Knock at the Cabin a 5 out of 10.
I really appreciated the camera work here from M. Night that gave a sense of discomfort at times, but his signature director tropes are still ever present in this, and it makes the movie not incredible. The story is pretty interesting, but feels very Black Mirror-esque. There was a small moment at the end about questioning if humanity was worth it, and I really liked that bit. That in and of itself made this movie worth the watch. A 6 out of 10.
The Oscar goes to Brendan Fraser.
Boston Strangler is on this list for the sole reason that Carrie Coon is in it. I haven't seen her since she turned in the best performance of 2020 with The Nest, and I am starving. Carrie Coon isn't in movies enough, in my opinion, and for some reason I thought she was gonna be in this movie more, but she isn't, and we focus more so on Keira Knightley's character, which is sort of a problem, because it's a Keira Knightley character. I'm not saying she's a bad actor or anything, but if you've seen any of her films, you know exactly what her character is and what her character is gonna face in this film. A white woman in a period piece who is ambitious, but the patriarchy does a thing, and she's rightfully like, no, I'm not gonna take no for an answer, and her love interest is like, well, why don't you love me more than your work over here? And she overcomes it all and sticks it to the man, and I feel like she's done this so many times that I could not be bothered to care that she's doing it again. If it was any other actor, I probably would have enjoyed this more because it would have felt fresh, but I just feel like I don't want to see it anymore. I actually would like to see her play someone different, maybe someone who's evil, or an anti-hero, or someone who isn't trying to be likable to the audience. Like, give me something new. It would be cool to see her do other shit. Anyway, Boston Strangler is fine. I've seen many comparisons to Zodiac, and I think that comparison is apt, but this is no Zodiac. I do like the destination Boston Strangler ends at. I just think the journey could have been much more compelling, with a lot more Carrie Coon, and I'm giving Boston Strangler a 6 out of 10.
This movie was definitely directed by someone related to David Cronenberg, I can tell you what. I believe in Mia Goth's supremacy, by the way. She is great in literally everything she's in. 6 out of 10.
Magic Mike's Last Dance is the obligatory Steven Soderbergh placement, and I'm excited. The trailer was great, Salma Hayek is hot, Channing Tatum is a great actor. Thank you, Steven Soderbergh. It's not as thematically complex as the first film, and it's not nearly as euphoric and beautiful as the second one. This is just a paper-thin story with no level of intrigue whatsoever. There's a really hot dance scene in the beginning with Channing Tatum and Salma Hayek that you've seen in the trailers a million times, and then there's another one with rain towards the end, but that's really it. There's some pretty insipid narration that basically explains every scene and kind of just explains the whole point of the second movie. Like, the narration is so bad, it doesn't even over-explain this movie, it over-explains the previous one. Like, you have a little girl narrating about these adult things, and I guess maybe because she's British, they thought it would add some flair to it, but what people forget is that the British accent is a double-edged sword, because if you're saying something smart with the British accent, you sound 10 times as smart, but if you're saying something, again, insipid, nonsensical, and fucking stupid, you sound 10 times as insipid, nonsensical, and fucking stupid. Magic Mike's crew, one of the best elements of the previous films, are relegated to a Zoom call for some reason. This sounds like I hated it, but I was entertained throughout mostly, and I laughed quite a bit, and Steven Soderbergh made some interesting camera choices like he always does, but it didn't reach the level of quality its predecessors achieved, so I'm giving Magic Mike's Last Dance a 6 out of 10, and it definitely could be a 5 in the future.
I'm grateful to Darren Aronofsky.
I'm shocked. One of the best feel-good movies I've seen in a long time. Why was I about to freaking cry? It had great jokes, great performances from everyone involved. Although it's super cheesy and super familiar in its story aspects, I feel like if you're just trying to smile and have a good time, watch this movie. This is the first time I did Regal's Mystery Movie Monday or whatever it's called, and it did not disappoint. A 6 out of 10. Guy Ritchie really loves making movies that are just a little above average, I swear, but not Aladdin and not King Arthur, those movies are terrible. Story was super close-knit and felt very stylistic at times. Other times it was your generic British spy action adventure. I did have fun though, that was nice. The short action sequences in this movie hit hard. I felt the weight of every punch, it was crazy. I'm glad they were kept really short too. It was a nice change of pace from regular action movie fare. But Jason Statham must be pissed that he only gets typecast in these movies like all the time. One day we need to see this man in a musical. Aubrey Plaza was really out here though. I feel like she was a little wasted in this unfortunately, as she was unable to be her crazy over-exaggerative self. There are hints of it, but it's never fully on display. She's really pretty though. Wow, 6 out of 10. The last act of this movie felt very superhero movie-esque, and I hate the little girl. She's kind of awful, but it was super fun and really funny. A nice, harmless, fun time in theaters. Love the practical effects and shooting on location. Such a nice change of pace once again in theaters. The middle of this movie felt like that one Zoe 101 episode where she has to do favors for every person in order to have like a date or something. Had the same vibes. Dungeons and Dragons overall though is a 6 out of 10 movie. Check it out.
There's a lot of talent here. You should be excited. Hopefully it comes out this year. You never know. This was another film on my most anticipated films list, and although I was anticipating it, I didn't really know what to expect, but it was alright. Ben Affleck hasn't directed a film this good since The Town. Air is a crowd pleaser that is surprisingly hilarious in many unexpected places. The ensemble cast is stellar and everyone has their moments to shine. The chemistry between every actor is off the charts amazing. Matt Damon hasn't been this watchable to me in a long time, and I usually like him best when he's collaborating with Steven Soderbergh, but here he's pretty great, and I think when you're acting opposite Viola Davis many times throughout the film, you have to step your game up, and he does. Chris Tucker is literally the textbook definition of a scene stealer in this. My major gripes with Air is that it's an Amazon Prime Video original film, and the color correction looks like every other project from Prime Video. It has that ugly saturated tone, the vomit yellow, the blood-curdling blues. I just don't like the way these Amazon movies look. They're gross. Also, the editing is quite sloppy at times, especially in the beginning. We jarringly cut in the middle of places that are very inconvenient. It didn't feel like a purposeful choice. They felt like genuine mistakes. In the edit, the camera will start tracking and then the actor will be obstructed by a lamp, and instead of waiting for the camera to pass the lamp, we'll just cut while the lamp is obstructing the actor's face for like a couple of seconds. It was very weird. And there are many moments like that throughout, but they become few and far between as the film progresses, but they're still there. And finally, my biggest gripe is that the messaging of the film is mostly good, but it feels like a half measure. I know that it's trying to tell this story, but also it has a lot of different meanings. It's a film about equity, and it's Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's first film under their new production company, Artist Equity, which is supposed to provide equity to the talent in front of and behind the camera that they wouldn't normally get from normal studios. But it's also distributed by Amazon, which is famously anti-union and a walking workers' rights violation. And yet there are multiple lines in this film that are ripped straight from Karl Marx. But there's also a title card showing charity in a positive light. If you need to do charity, that is a failure of the system. Whatever, it's fine. And beyond all of that, it's pretty much a commercial for Nike, which has notoriously profited off of Chinese, basically slave labor. So it's weird. Like, are those child laborers not entitled to equity? They literally make the shoe. Anyway, there's a lot of conflicting ideas here. I don't know how Ben Affleck ultimately feels about all of these things, but it's the film's job to communicate that, and I'm giving Air a 6 out of 10. It's a crowd pleaser, but it's just hard for me to watch a political film and not think about politics. Sue me.
And the Oscar goes to Everything, Everywhere.
Scream 6 is a good movie. Wow, has a super nice opening sequence that subverted my expectations, an engaging story, and likable characters. I don't like how people can get stabbed and shot and just start walking around like it's nothing, but everything else about this new Scream works. It's a little predictable, but it's such a nice change of pace from the usual slasher stuff we get, and I'm always here for meta content. That Letterboxd dig hit so close to home as well. This is truly the best Scream since the original. A nice 7 out of 10.
I thought I was safe to go to the movies in the afternoon on a work day to see a horror movie, but two motherless pieces of shit walked into my theater and were flashing their lights, making rambunctious sounds because they kept rummaging through their loud shopping bags and purses and book bags and a bunch of other shit. And whenever they left multiple times, they would like turn on their flashlights to like look for something hidden between the seats. Throughout the movie, they were talking out loud because they didn't understand the plot, and also the boyfriend kept groping the girlfriend. They took phone calls, they got random texts because they don't know how to silence their phones. One of them was rolling a blunt at one point. I could see it in the literal shadow on the side of the wall because they kept their flashlight on. And hearing all these things, you'd assume that like I would have said something, and I did, but they would do all of these awful things in the middle of this movie in a time frame where I had the time to calm down, and then once they started again, I would get ramped up again. So I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster of trying not to commit a violent crime. It was awful. I really hope one day I don't snap and get myself in trouble because of these knuckle-dragging, self-centered Neanderthals whose brains are as smooth as a freshly paved road. I genuinely hate rude people. I don't know how you go to a movie theater and you see all of these ads that tell you, hey, shut the fuck up, turn your phones off, watch the movie that you paid for, and like people still cannot fucking help themselves. I don't understand it. I don't want to understand it. I just want them to stop or stay home and go away.
You piece of shit, little tiny dick licker fucking asshole fucking eye!
The New York-centric additions in this movie made zero sense whatsoever. I also wish stabbing people actually meant something in these movies again. The plot armor is super thick now. I'm sure I'll like this movie a little bit more on a second watch when I watch it alone. Also, I saw the killer coming from a mile away. 6 out of 10.
The messages here about Tyler redefining the hip-hop genre and what hip-hop/rap is are overall incredible. To see the way this man has changed since his release of Bastard, all the way to now with Call Me If You Get Lost, it's an amazing delight. He really has matured in a way that most artists can't lyrically and melodically. He's made the genre his own, and I'm so glad that this man finally is getting the recognition he deserves. Compared to that Miley Cyrus thing on Disney+, this is much more focused and gives multiple perspectives, which that so desperately needed. It goes by like a basic documentary, which is a little lame since Tyler is so different with his music in terms of presentation, but I mean, he personally did not make this, so I guess it's fine. Would love to see a short by him one day. His music videos are so stylized, it's great. I'm giving this a 7 out of 10.
John Wick Chapter 4 has Donnie Yen and Keanu Reeves shooting at each other point blank and deflecting bullets with swords. I'm in. John Wick Chapter 4 was another film on my most anticipated films list, and it was nearly 3 hours of badassness, if that's even a word, don't care. This film looks incredible. Every set piece outdoes the last one, whether it's the lighting, or the concept of the scene, or the camera movement, or the choreography, or even the intention of a scene, which may call back to a moment in the previous films. It's wonderful. Not as great as Chapter 3 in my opinion, but John Wick Chapter 4 solidifies this series' place in the upper echelon of action films, and Chad Stahelski is, without a doubt, the best living action director right now. You cannot look at the current crop of action films that are being made, except for maybe The Raid, that can touch this. No one is doing it like him right now, and his imitators, although they are welcome, simply are not at his level. Making a film this technically sound and this technically ambitious is so incredibly hard. and him and his team of filmmakers make it look effortless. Keanu Reeves' old ass makes it look effortless. Donnie Yen also makes it look effortless. I have some bones to pick with the execution of the final sequences at the very end, but other than that, this film flies by, it's a blast, and I can't wait to watch it again. Shout out to Rina Sawayama. Literally every other action series is garbage in comparison. If you're not going this hard with your action film or action scene, you shouldn't even try. And I'm giving John Wick Chapter 4 a 7 out of 10. Could be an 8 in the future, but it ain't going any lower than a 7.
This movie is pretty good, but I don't know why everybody is acting like it's the second coming when it's high-key just more of the same. The story here, although incredibly predictable, is much more engaging than in previous films, except maybe the last one. We are presented with more super overlong drawn-out action sequences that are inconsequential to the main characters and story overall. It's as if we go through waves of nameless henchmen just so we can get to a final boss. It literally is like a video game. This shit happens I think like 3 times, and it's so strange and so weird. You're telling me these men in suits from the men's warehouse can just survive a shotgun blast to the midsection? You're telling me this man can just casually walk after falling out of a building? You're telling me that after falling 5 flights of stairs, this man is just walking around? It's so ridiculous at this point. How did this man teleport across the world so fast, like 4 times? He must have been in season 7 of Game of Thrones. I can see the direction they are going for the next one, and yeah, makes sense. I'm all for real stunts and good action, and this movie has plenty of it, but come on, brother. It's the same stuff we have gotten before. Nothing really new, nothing memorable except that stair sequence all the way at the end. It's so blech after 3 minutes, and this movie is so long. I wanted to go to bed so bad. I should not have gone to the 10 p.m. showing. The composition throughout was great, the sound mix was great, and the music was great. This is definitely the best looking John Wick movie. Overall though, it's a 7 out of 10 film.
Pamela, A Love Story is a Netflix documentary about Pamela Anderson told by Pamela Anderson. This documentary is excellent. I didn't know that much about her besides all the basic things that everyone already knows, and this film does go over all of that in detail, but I think what most of us have been missing through our media diet of her is her humanity, which this film shows in spades. She's a truly wonderful person who's been used and abused by the media, and she's another victim of the intersectionality of misogyny and capitalism. It's so pathetic the way we treat each other, in the way that she was treated, and seeing her journey over the course of those 2 hours were simultaneously heartbreaking and heartwarming. I laughed, I cried, I had a ball. Watch this immediately. It will definitely be one of the best things you watch all year, and I'm giving Pamela, A Love Story an 8 out of 10. Close is the latest film directed by Lucas Daunt. His previous film, Girl, I really liked, but I was curious to see what his next film would be, and it turned out to be kind of a spiritual sequel in that Girl was about the performance of femininity, and Close is about the performance of masculinity. Not only is it about that, it's also pretty fucking great. I've seen quite a bit of backlash about the turning point in this film, but to that I say, what this film is about and the way it goes about it, whether you like it or not, is incredibly honest. If you look at the stats for these types of situations, what unfolds is a lot more common than you think it is. And beyond that, this film is told subjectively. So we're gonna get one side of the drama, but that's the side this film is criticizing. It's the whole point of the movie. I think if you have a problem with the pacing or the cinematography or whatever, like, that's a whole other thing. But I feel like sometimes when people watch a film, they completely ignore the film they're watching, and they want the film to be what they want it to be. Like, there are some films that completely break people's brains, and this is one of them. I just think overall people are fucking stupid, but anyway, the performances here are so good, they will take your solid form and melt you into a liquid form, and then you will simply evaporate. They're so vulnerable and open, and each of the actors are so lost in their roles, you can't take your eyes off of them. The cinematography is warm and visceral and disarming. I just loved the whole thing. Parts of it are predictable, but that's kind of the point. And if you see these patterns in your own life, you can be like, oh yeah, this happened in Close, that movie that made me cry. Let me break the cycle in hopes of a better outcome. You know, like the whole point of art and putting yourself in someone else's shoes. I'm explaining movies at this point because people are fucking stupid. You should see this as soon as possible, and I hope you loved it as much as I did. I feel like people's unenjoyment of movies is making me not enjoy movies. I hate reading people being dumb as fuck. It causes me great stress. Anyway, with Pamela, A Love Story, I said I laughed, I cried, I had a ball. Well, with Close, I cried, and I cried. And I'm giving Close a 9 out of 10. It could probably be an 8 in the future, but for now, I'm at a 9. It knocked my socks off. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you agree or disagree, tell us in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share with your friends. Do all the things. We got another box office tier list coming soon. We got some commentaries. We got a bunch of stuff. It's gonna be a ton of fun. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night. Thank you for watching.